just a few admin points. If you've got any questions, please just write them down. We'll have a Q&A of the formalities. And yeah, Kevin will tell you more about Infiniti. So I'd like to introduce him. He's the co-CEO of Infiniti, Kevin Harris.
Thanks, yeah. Hi, guys. I'll speak in for a second. Nice to see you all here, and thanks for making the time to come out so early on a Friday, the last day in November. I'm quite excited, obviously, to spend some time with you guys because we've been on a long journey together, Brendan and I, and the business is getting better and better every time we do something. So we're excited about the future, and certainly excited about making dollars. So I'm sure most of you here who know Brendan, I think there's quite a few of you know Brendan from past life. But we've been working together. I think I was actually his first investor when he started this year, back in the good old days, and it's evolved really substantially from there. So it's quite exciting about what's happening with people. So Infiniti investment is really about, you know, getting hopefully one day to be able to get infinite returns on your money. So, you know, that's kind of our focus to work towards with everybody, and very much together as partners, because we don't have investors, we have partners. As you'll see as we go through, we're not looking for people to be in business with us in one project. We're looking for people to be in business with us lots of projects at a time. So we're busy building our portfolio, and as we build our portfolio, you have the opportunity, you can choose which ones you want to participate with. And that's kind of how our philosophy will grow and unravel over time. But the focus is to live free. So what does live free mean? Well, God forbid half these lunatics in South Africa do some of the things they want to do, and you have to lock the door, drop the keys, and get the hell out of Dodge, and you have to go and live somewhere else in the world, and you want to maintain the same standard of living you did. Yeah, what would that need to look like for you? So I'm going to use me as an example. I've got 3 kids in private school. I had an afro before this all started as well. That was a joke, but I don't make a few of those. It sounds a bit like a joke. You laugh at me, I'll think you're laughing at the jokes. It'll just make me feel bad. So, you know, 3 kids in private school. I want to take my wife out for dinner 2 or 3 times a week. I want to be able to have a housekeeper. If we do debating about the time, how many days a week we get a housekeeper from South Africa. But no, reasonable house, nice car. Like to be able to travel overseas 2 or 3 times a year. Nothing fancy, just like a good lifestyle, right? Like we have here. So to replicate that in the US would cost me $25,000 a month. So if I reverse engineer that out for myself, I need about a $2 million portfolio in the way that we do things to be able to live off the dividends of that investment portfolio. So the goal over time is to obviously build a $2 million portfolio. And as I said, the way we do that is over time, as we bring new projects on, you just decide, yes, I want that one, no, yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, 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 no, no, no. And you pick and choose as you want to grow in all the research that we do. So that's the why. How do we protect ourselves, grow our wealth, and offset those massive threats? And really, I guess that's what it's about. You know, it's so interesting how the story started. When we started in 2011, we bought a condo together in Orlando for $34,000. The rand was at 7. The build cost in '85, just so you know, was $45,000, and at its peak it was $180. And I was umming and ahhing, and he was already.
I was all in there.
And that's how it started. We bought that for 34 in 6 weeks. Later we sold it for 42, and it started from that. And I ummed and ahed, and from there I've sold up everything, and I've moved everything to America. But it was a process. Does that make sense? But still, Cape Town's the best place to live. I live 10 minutes. It used to be 6, but the traffic was terrible. 10 minutes to school, 10 minutes to the beach, 10 minutes to town. The only thing that makes it better is you earn dollars. And it takes the edge off, because when you watch what happens, you become an observer of what's happening rather than a participant in what's happening here. Does that make sense? And it's just a different mindset and a different view. Hopefully this appeals to you too. So what do we want to be involved in? You know, if you have a look at AI, you look at technology and the way the world's moving, we want to be involved in things that are not going to be undisrupted. So I don't know if you do much research, but if you have a look at what's happening with artificial intelligence and supercomputing and crypto, they're saying that in the next 5 years, like 60% of jobs as you know it will no longer exist or change beyond recognition. 60%. So it's it's what is safe and secure anymore. Like if you're buying an office building and you've got all these businesses in there, are they going to still be there, or is technology going to disrupt them completely and you're going to lose tenants? So if we have a look at the non-disruptible spaces, we're looking at things that only two things we'll ever focus in. One is multifamily. If those of you don't know US, it's basically a block of flats, not sectionalized. It's one block, one paper, and it gets sold as one paper. And it's traded as freely there, like we've got a $60 million asset that a family's buying. That's a small retail. Does that make sense? So the scale there's massive, and the liquidity there's massive, and the exit opportunities are massive. You had that asset here that we made 3 or 4 listed companies would bid on it. Over there, you've got private individuals, you've got small family offices, you've got small REITs, you've got big REITs, you've got global interest. So the exit opportunity is always great, right? It's a stabilized story. And why we love those assets is because you look at multifamily, you look at medical, and you look at the last 50 years of American history, and you look at all the crises that have happened over the last 50 years, they were the two that are the most resilient. You'll see why that's important too. So Warren Buffett, those of you who are a believer, rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, be rule number 1. Which is a great philosophy to be under, so, but, we try, I guess our IT and what we spend a lot of time doing is how do we maximize return and minimize risk and create the most tax efficient structure we can. So this is, Einstein said if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. So hopefully I'm just going to explain this as simply as possible, because for me, this is really the crux of what we do and why the US is such an amazing market to invest in. So just have a look. Let's do a South African view. I'm going to keep this really simple and really basic and no fancy, just something very, very simple. So if you buy a property for R1 million in South Africa, it's going to be 700 Rand, it's going to be bank debt to 10%. 300,000 is going to be equity. Your expenses are debt, rates, levies, taxes, management, maintenance. And after expenses, I call the South African strategy, you'll see that just now, but I call it the hope and pray strategy. Why is it? The hope is that your income covers your expenses and you pray for capital growth. Because that's the way it's always been here. It's you negatively gear your assets with 5 to 10% for 3 to 5 years if you've done really well, 5 to 7 years if you're not doing so good, to get to 0. And South Africans think that if I bought something 5 years ago for R1 million and 5 years later it's worth 2 million Rand, the question is, have you done well? So most people think I've done amazing. I've doubled my income in 5 years. That's insane. Well, we're going to analyze that a little further just now, but 3 to 5 years to get to 0 to make your money and capital growth. So I hope and pray we spoke about that. So here's this is what we're fighting every single day in South Africa. First of all, we're fighting 6% inflation. Now that's the published inflation rate. The reality is, I don't know if you've done any analysis on this, but the reality is it's nowhere near 6%. 6% if you take the basket of goods of bread, milk, water.
And they change the basket whenever they feel like it.
Right? I'm going to show you some stuff now later on. But the reality is I had a good friend of mine, a partner in business, he used to run a company called the Creative Council. And they had to do this analysis every year. And he said the reality is for middle class and above South Africa, the inflation number is closer to 20%. So not to depress you, and 6%, if you take the last 30 years of South African history, the rand devalues against the dollar, that's on average 6% per annum. So if you're 20% there and 6%, you have to be 25% ahead a year to be at 0. If you want to make 10%, you have to be 35% ahead a year. Now, and the only way you can do that is in business, and certainly in business you can't do that every year. Does that make sense? Not to depress you, but we're going to hand out the Prozac in a minute.
I just want to say one thing on inflation. Like, everybody thinks it doesn't happen. And if you look at what's going on in Venezuela right now, they're going to hit 1,000,000% this year and 1,000,000,000% inflation next year. And they've had over 1 million people displaced in the last year because of that. They simply can't buy food and their money's worthless. It's now got token value, just like Zimbabwe money, where people are making flowers out of the money and selling it as gifts on the side of the road. So inflation does happen, and happens in real time. Argentina right now is sitting with 60% interest rates. If anybody remembers back in 1998 what the interest rates were in South Africa, and we're headed that way again, I think because they simply can't avoid it. They've got to fight the inflation. The only way they fight the inflation is increase the interest rates. We just had one last week. So these things are very real, and they're happening right now around the world. We need to take that into account.
And then obviously when you exit any property, with high exit fee. So you've got agents cover, you've got CGT, and then all the other taxes if you want to get SUR.
Kev, can you speak louder? They need a bit more volume.
So have a look at that slide. That's the last 10 years. So we talk about 6% inflation. Okay, well, if you take that and divide it by 10, what is the real number? There's 40% on petrol. There's 28% on coke. There's 16% on houses. There's 29% on cars annually. Not to depress you again, but that's the reality. What's happening where we live. Does that make sense? This is the different basket. This is not the basket they show you. But this is the real, look at school fee, 34%. I've got 3 kids in private school. It's like, you know, if you see me on the corner with a cardboard sign and a monkey and a tin cup, just saying, you know, 3 kids in private school, please help, God bless, you know, just throw a few coins in that direction. So let's have a look at the US view. Okay, so it's a $1 million property in the USA, 700,000 is going to be bank debt. Again, look at the difference. It's a 4.2 to 4.75%. And in some cases, we're getting lower than that. I just want to be conservative. But if you just, let's just take banana. You take a property in South Africa that's got an unlevered yield of 6%, and you take a property in America that's got an unlevered yield of 6%. You're borrowing at 10.5, so you're having to pay 4.5% into the bank straight away. You're borrowing at 4.5, and you're making money on the bank's money. I mean, it's just like a no-brainer. Does that make sense? It's the magic's in the interest rate and the magic's in the gearing.
And I know a lot of people here haven't been able to get that kind of gearing in the States. And we can now, as long as you structure things correctly. And we've built a very big portfolio getting that kind of debt. So we're going to show you how.
So the same. The expenses are no different. You've got rates, levies, taxes, management, maintenance. But what we're aiming for from day one, this is the main really what I love, is that from day one, what we're aiming to do in all our projects that we bring to the table is we want to start investors off with 7 to 8% net cash flow from day one. So what we're doing, if you have a look at the multifamily product we're buying, and Brendan will get into some more detail around this, but you know, that's a great place to start. And the way we de-risk it is, you know, we're looking for a product that's, you know, very highly leased already, so that a lot of the risk is taken out. We'll get to that just now. So the difference is in the comparison. If you do a straight comparison, US view versus the South African view, your cash on cash return from inception on a $300,000 investment, which is your equity into the project, $25,000 a year. So you've got $25,000 a year versus negatively gear 5 to 10% for the first 3 to 5 years. Has anyone seen the Matrix? Well, now you've got the blue pill, so you can't go back. And when I really, so, you know, when you really understand this, it's very difficult to buy property here. It's very difficult. Cash flow from day one. Okay, and then of course in America we've got the 3 magic beans. I love these 3 magic beans. I love it, 3 small children. Number one is that on your multifamily assets, you can depreciate the asset over 27.5 years. I'm going to throw some numbers very quickly at you. The last asset we built was 140 apartments in Atlanta. We bought it for $18.3 million. Net operating income after everything is $460,000. Our depreciation number is $450,000. So our taxable income is $10,000. And with what Trump's done with corporate tax, which you'll see now, it's dropped from 35 to 21. I don't know how you feel, but it sounds pretty good to me. I'm happy to pay $2,100 a year and $460,000 cash flow. How does that sound to you? It's the magic of America. People say, a lot of South Africans' view about America, I don't know why it is they don't want to be caught in the American tax net. It's amazing.
I love it.
We hear it all the time. It's like it's
Absolutely
the best place at the moment in the world. The most tax efficient country to live in is America. Well, not to live in, to have assets in. You don't want to live there. You want to have money.
Although we're all going to live there. Yeah. That's a different story.
Well, I'm still debating. You are. And then, of course, when you do have the liquidity event, you do experience capital gains. There's a 1031 exchange, which I love. And that is you can defer your capital gains to the next project with 3 months of sale. And you can keep doing that. One of the guys we work with in the USA has been doing it for 95 years. They've got one of the biggest property portfolios in Atlanta. And for 95 years, the family's been deferring. He said to me, Kevin, why would I ever want to realize my gains and pay tax? I'm getting 7 to 8% cash flow free of tax. You know what the line item I started in your tax return is? The line item in your tax return for your 7 to 8% cash flow against the depreciation is free cash flow. It's like, and the government goes, sure, tick.
Keep going.
Like if SARS saw free cash flow here, they go, what do you mean free?
Well, just tax Netflix.
And then, of course, we just spoke about Trump. So your corporate tax is dropped to So, I mean, once you take a photograph of this, because this is the reality. Every time you think about buying property in South Africa, just go back to your phone, look at the slide and go, what am I thinking? Like, do I want a hairstyle like Kevin? Keep doing what you do. Okay, did you get it? Sorry. I'm just stand here and smile. Okay. Let's talk a bit about a history. This is where it all. Sorry, you still haven't got it. Can I WhatsApp it to you?
We'll send the slides. Yeah, we'll send the slides. Even better, I'll send a real deal that crystallizes that.
Again, I'm trying to do this quickly, so I really want to keep it short and tight. Last time we spoke forever, and that's why we separated, because when we both talk, it goes on forever. So just quickly, let's go through some history. This is the first asset we started with, was a $33 million project. We about 85% of the way through now, with some beautiful drone footage if you want to see what it looks like. 263 multifamily apartments in Kingsport, Tennessee. I'm not going to get into the detail. 22% projected IRR. I think we'll probably overshoot that. But we haven't finished the project now. We've got a REIT that's looking at taking us out already, and it's going to be later if we decide to do it. So yes, the key, some high-end condos. We don't typically do this, but it was an accident, and it's a long story. I'm not going to get into that. But look at the IRR. There was projected 90. So when you see a 90 IRR, what do? Let me tell you, panic. Okay, just FYI, and there's a story behind that, but I'm not going to tell you the story.
Everybody made money. Just it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely wasn't a 90. It's more like a 50. It's not bad, but it's not the pro forma, and I don't like that.
That's true. And everything else we've overshot. So and I'd like to hope we can continue that, but you do get your. What did I say? The two asset classes we focus on? It's medical and multifamily. So everything that you see outside of here, there's reasons that we got involved in them. And this is an office building in Atlanta, and we had one investor who was looking for something, and he just bought that. Just the project, we were involved with them, and it's doing great, but it's not.
And strangely enough, we bought it from ABSA, the only asset they had in the States.
Some medical stuff. In fact, we've got an offer on the table for this one now too, which is also quite amazing. We do a lot in America. There's these renal clinics, which is a kidney dialysis clinic. And what's beautiful about, well, not the problem, but about America is that in 1972 they passed the Late Stage Renal Care Act. So if you need kidney dialysis, the government pays. So you've got a government-backed. I mean, Fresenius, the tenant here is a Fortune 300 global Fortune 300 company. They're the largest manufacturer and supplier of kidney dialysis equipment in the world. You've got a triple net lease, boring. They make 5-6% return on your money, a little bit of escalations every year, but there's no stuff in it. And you'll see what we like to do is we like to force appreciation, which is the magic, I guess, of what we do. Just start with cash flow, nice cash flow, 7 to 8%, and force appreciation. You get out within 3 to 6 years, but start with ground. This is my favorite project. It still is my favorite project, but we've got a great offer on it. We bought this. So it was the biggest cotton mill in America when it was built, 44,000 square meters, 9 football fields. We converted into 303 apartments with the most amazing amenities package. It's got its own lake, 24-hour gym, craft brewery, storage, dog groomer, all on site, and it's all the most high-tech product that you'll be able to get. So from your cell phone, you open your door, you turn on your kettle, your TV, you can order beer from the brewery to your room. You can check the machines in the gym to see which ones are available. You can book your pagoda at the pool area from this little app. This thing, and it costs us $300 a month. $300 per apartment to set it up.
Forget that. The government gave us $20 million in tax credits.
Yeah.
That's why it worked.
So that's amazing. The walls are 1.2 meter thick brick walls, but it was 43 degrees one of the days that we were there. And inside that place, it's cool as a cucumber. It was amazing. So here's another dialysis clinic. This is that project in Atlanta I just told you about. All of these are what we've done in the last 2 years. So it's been pretty good, pretty good journey. I'm speaking to and we're talking about the equities market. And if you just have a look at comparing the equities market versus the American REIT market, just people like stock market. I mean, look, that's performed at 5.5%. The REITs have performed at 8.7%, and we are performing. Our average is about 17% in what we do. So it's amazing the difference. Every time, if you want to know how to get a stock price to drop, ask me to invest in it. So I just every time I do it, I just get it wrong. So I just stop doing it. I can't understand it. I don't like. There's too many. It's just property so easy. There's there. You put a tenant, and move out. You put another one in. Simple. Grows over time. All right. It's all about the buy, isn't it? It's always about the buy. Okay. Let's move on. So what are we looking for? Dependable US dollar income gives us freedom. As I said, if you're making $20,000, $25,000 a month income from your property portfolio in dollars, it takes the edge off life. Because you don't have to worry, it's taking care of itself. Does that make sense? And obviously, the more diversified.
Can I expand on that dependable for a second? Because one of the reasons we shifted to buying 140 units or 60 units or 80 units at a time is if I've got $100,000 and I own one house, when that house goes vacant, I'm paying the bond. And somebody's phoning me every day, fix it, make it right and place a tenant and move money from South Africa to pay the bond. If I've got 140 tenants, I can have 40 or 50 of them not pay, and I'm still not hunting for money because we've got enough cash flow as a buffer there to go into. Our cash flow is getting hit, but nobody's phoning me for money. And that's one of the major things. I'd rather have $100,000 in 140 units with everybody paying me incrementally than have $100,000 in one unit. And then when that one guy because you will have vacancies in property, it's going to happen. When that guy moves out, you're going to get smashed with a $10,000 rehab, and that's going to kill your cash flow for the previous year anyway. And then you've got to place a new tenant. So you're going to have 2 or 3 months of vacancy. And if you don't take that into account, you end up in a riskier situation. So I moved out of all of my single family stuff and into just buy blocks of apartments with other people, and I'm much safer, and my money lands every quarter, no issues, and I never have to think about it.
We have a lot of clients who've got single family homes in the US who are moving out of that into the stuff. Once you've tasted this, it's very difficult to go back to the other. It's it's just another animal, and it's just the risk is spread, the costs are spread. It just works so much better.
And we get better debt.
So why multifamily? I'm going to zip through this very quickly. So obviously there's massive trend towards multifamily housing. If you look at the millennials coming through, they don't want to own, they want to rent, and they want to travel. And the retirees, the big people who have these big family homes with 7 bedrooms for the 27 children, and then the kids are out the house and they retire. They used to do sell their house and go and buy a condo in Florida. Now what they do is they sell the house and go and rent a multifamily unit in a really upmarket complex where they got all these facilities that are part of the thing, the pool, the dog groomer, the brewery, the storage, all the stuff that we spoke about, and they spend their money on travel and have a great retirement. So if you look at both ends of the scale, pushing very much towards this. Cap rates are trending down over the long term. Rents are trending up over the long term because the supply demand is still in the US. It's still out of whack. Vacancies are trending down over the long term, and you'll see how we force some of that appreciation through that as well. And obviously diversification, which is what Brendan spoke about. This is the real magic. So what are we hunting for all the time? We're hunting for deals where you've got someone who owned it for a while, but they're getting older now, they want to retire, they haven't been running it as efficiently as possible. And we're looking for opportunities where we buy. Obviously, it's all about the buy. So we do so much due diligence. We look at probably 60 to 80 projects to find 2 or 3 to shortlist. And we only buy, that's monthly, and we only buy 3 a year, 4 a year. We kiss a lot of frogs.
Yeah, you got to kiss 1,000 frogs to find the one. Yeah.
So inefficiencies in management. So what we're looking for is that the business, they're not focused on the product anymore. Their costs are 50% or above. We're looking for that because we want to bring it down to 45% or below. So there's a little bit of space to play there. Under lease, so we're looking for stuff that's less than 95% lease. There's a little bit of a play there. We're looking for stuff that's the rent per square foot's trailing the market. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $70. Trailing the market because they haven't been efficient with their rental increases and looking after their tenants.
That's another nice thing about multifamily that I want to talk about for a second is buying the Fresenius or the long-term medical leases are really good for stable cash flow. But what I found is if I can uptick the rents faster on a cap rate on a yearly or 2-yearly basis, I get much higher appreciation. So the forced appreciation method is because I can uptick the rentals on a 12-month or a 24-month cadence, I can push the value of the property higher much faster. Sorry. Sorry.
So there's the 7 to 8% cash flow we're looking for from day one. And then obviously over to my colleague over here, we're trying to create the forced appreciation but through the renovation model. So looking at stuff that was built in the 60s, 70s, the 80s, stuff needs a renovation. We can renovate for like $8,000, an apartment, we can lift the rent by $150 to $200 an apartment. Your return on investment on that intervention is massive. So like on the multi-family apartments in Atlanta, there's 140 of them. We're only renovating 28 because there's enough of proof of concept there that we can either then sell it on to somebody else and leave them the value to still make money, or we could do another 28 and then sell it on, or another 28 and then sell it on. So there's lots of opportunities to add more value and force further appreciation. So we're targeting the 14 to 16 IRR. Our average, as I said, at the moment is about 17, and we do it in a 3 to 6 year period. When you get in, fix the problem, create the extra value, and get out and roll it. And keep doing that, because we're in the wealth creation mode, not just wealth preservation. If you want wealth preservation, buy Fresenius Medical Care, collect your rent check every month, and you get your 6% return. Boring, 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 but perceived safe. I think it's safer to have your money in 140 apartments than in one single pad site with even though it's a bulletproof tenant, triple B plus credit rating, $27 billion balance sheet. I've seen many big companies go bust, have no control over how the company runs. Some measure of control over the 140 tenants. And get great debt. Obviously, that makes a big difference as well. Some interest-only period, it boosts our cash flow in the beginning, which you'll see on the pregnancy. So the magic is, as we said, there's no magic. We pound the pavements, we look at lots of stuff, we've got lots of contacts there, we're growing our contact base there, we're growing our contact base here, we've got networking, same thing, and over time we're getting better and better and better and better at what we do, and we're getting better and better at quality deals over time. So it's just work. That's the magic of work. So, giving you the power of choice, diversification in US dollar income and long-term trends is really well. So that's me. I've done that summary. There's lots to get into, lots of detail to get into, but I guess today is just to meet you guys, to talk about some of the stuff we're doing, to then sit together with you and have a look at your specific circumstances to find out what number you want to reverse engineer, and then we'll start to put together a program. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Kevin. Some of these things are quite new for some of you, so don't worry. Does go over your head. You'll have questions and answers afterwards, so don't panic. We've got our first guest speaker for today, Andrew from Stable Forex. He'll be discussing how you can take money out of South Africa. Thank you, Andrew.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, the most important one. So I just want to say one thing about Andy. We've a lot of people have worked with Andrew already. I've been working with him for 6-7 years. And it's been a hell of a journey. We've traveled together. We've had a lot of fun together, but he's also looked after me and my clients very, very, very well. So Andrew, thank you for what you do. Your team is amazing. And the reason he's here, and I get pitched by Forex people regularly because of the business we're in. I don't move because of the level of service that he gives us. So it's not about how much money he makes, it's the level of service he gives. It's just unbelievable. So over to you, Andy.
So you're saying I can take some white margin?
Don't get too, but coins keep coming, bro.
Thanks very much, Kevin, for the opportunity. So I don't have any slides. I'm just going to speak very briefly. I recognize a few faces, so good to see some existing clients here. And for those of you who don't know me, I run a business called Sable International, based here in South Africa. We're headquartered in London. And we also have an office down in Australia. And for the last 25 years, we've been helping South Africans in South Africa and globally with their cross-border financial requirements. So that's tax planning, structuring, and then most importantly, forex. So we started the South African Forex business in 2011, just after the Reserve Bank started relaxing capital controls. I think you may all remember the days when South Africans could take a lifetime allowance, I think it was 700,000 rand, yet they have billions offshore. So money's like water, it always finds a way. But the good thing nowadays is that we have these legal allowances. The Reserve Bank gives us 11 million rand a year. We're taxpayers, so that's 1 million rand single discretionary, and a further 10 million under what's known as the capital allowance, for which you need a foreign tax clearance from SARD. So for those of you who've been inspired by that magic that Kevin spoke about, you've got 4 weeks before the end of 2018 to take advantage of those allowances if you haven't. So those allowances are valid in calendar years. So if you haven't used 2018's allowances, now's a really good time. Just to give you a heads up, in September we were sitting at 14.70 to a dollar. And today I think it's sitting at about 13.60, 13.65 at the moment. So the rand's come back very nicely after that blowout it had that little emerging market crisis a few months ago. So it's a good time. And the interesting thing about South Africans is when the rand gets strong, everyone starts feeling confident and they do nothing. When the rand is weak, they panic and they move their money out. As Kevin said, the most important thing when you're making an investment anywhere is how you buy. If you buy your rands expensive, you're going to be buying that asset at a bad price if you're going to opt that back to rand. So if you haven't moved money this year, the rand is the best that it has been. Please take advantage and start investing with these guys. We've had a very interesting year this year, and we've seen it. We have a big immigration business as well. We specialize in helping people get visas to go and work offshore, relocating, citizenship, investments, all that kind of stuff. It's been a very depressed year for South Africa, and people are looking to grow. But as Kevin said, one of the most important things is the grass isn't greener on the other side. Living in the US might not be all it's cracked up to be. So living in Cape Town's good. So South Africans, if you can, you have to hit. Now, don't completely disinvest, but just make sure that you can try and balance your portfolios with offshore assets and preferably offshore income. I travel a lot to Portugal, which is relatively poor place by European standards and apparently quite cheap. And even for a South African, Portugal is really expensive. So I spoke to some Portuguese the other day, and they were pleasantly surprised how cheap it was staying in the Table Bay Hotel. So we are becoming poorer and poorer globally every day. So it's really important to just keep chipping away and hedging and getting some wealth offshore. One of the biggest challenges that South Africans have is it's taking that step. How do you actually start investing offshore? I've been playing in the offshore space for many, many years. I was 27 when I moved to the UK. I lived there for 11 years. And, we're thinking about making another international move at some stage in the not too distant future. And it's very, very daunting. So for people who don't know, it's even worse. And one thing that I can say is the most important thing is to find good partners, because it's striking how many South African investors we see through our forex business who make terrible investments offshore. People flying from outside of the country, they've got nice shiny shoes on. Sorry, boys. And these boys are South African. But then you'll be amazed how trusting South African investors are foreigners. And, they come and talk good stories. And people make investments. We recently heard of a bunch of guys in Joburg who, between them, lost 3 million euros. The 6 of them, €500,000 each. And they put the money with a lawyer that they thought was legitimate, and that lawyer disappeared. She's now in jail, but the money's gone. So it's really important that you deal with companies and with people who understand, all the aspects of these transactions. And it goes right down to actually moving your money. On a 4 million rand or 10 million rand deal, we can save you probably up to 40 or 50,000 rand. That helps you make a better investment. You're going to get more bang for your buck. Very important to do tax planning, and you need to understand the tax situation in South Africa and in the destination you're investing in. I know that you guys have got good tax guys in the US. Get them to talk to your local tax advisors. These are all the things when you're investing offshore that you really do need to understand. What happens one day if you die? How does that asset or that investment get handled? Do you have an offshore will? How does that come back to your state here? So these are the things that South Africans start thinking about, and you become very overburdened, and you suddenly think, oh, you know what, I'm going to get on and check my emails, and you forget to make the investment. But press ahead, talk to the right people, and there's lots of really good deals out there. So as Brendan said, I've worked with these guys for a long time. Most of the clients are very happy. I don't think I've ever met an unhappy client. You guys have got good deals. These guys got a lot of good energy, and I think most importantly, they can slip out some good deals. So if you decide to press the button, please give us a ring. I'll be here afterwards to chat to you. And I've got my colleague Gemma in the corner there, who's probably more qualified than I am. She's been at Sable longer than me. But thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Andy. One thing I wanted to say quickly before you go is how he's able to save people money is you're buying bulk money and moving it over, and you can create a little bit more on the spread, and you don't charge any fees if you're moving more than like 100,000 rand or something like that. How does it work?
Yeah, so what we do, practically is obviously we're a bulk buyer of currency from the whichever banks we buy from. So we get a really good buy rate. So we'll be able to buy the currency closer to the mid-market than an ordinary retail investor would. And then what we do is we pass part of that saving on. Unfortunately, moving money out of South Africa is quite cumbersome because of all the paperwork. So there is quite a lot of cost to doing deals. But if you're a regular client who does some big transactions through us, we'll do smaller deals as well. But you know, if you're going to be doing 10,000 Rand, 10,000 Rand, then it probably is more efficient to use your bank, sadly. But you know, because they actually, I mean, everybody loses money on small deals. So if you've got a good mix of deals, then we can really add money.
Yeah, you've definitely saved me a lot of money. So.
And the other thing as well is that I think what's really important is that we meet many clients who've tried through their bank to move money and they've had an issue. It could be something outstanding with their tax clearance or whatever. And typically you talk to you know, somebody in the bank, it's just easier for them to say, sorry, I can't help you, and carry on and help the next client, than to actually try and apply their mind. But what we'll do is we'll really work with you, try and make sure that we find the right solution. And I mean, we recently did a deal. We got a Reserve Bank approval for a property investor for over R1 billion, buying shopping centres in the UK. And the bank that he banks with, the proper bank in this country, couldn't help it. And it took us 6 weeks and we got him that approval. So we don't take no for an answer. We'll find a way. There's always a legal way to move money. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks,
Hopefully
Andy.
we can work with more of
Thanks.
Thank you.
We are very fortunate. It doesn't happen often, but when we planned this breakfast, we had no idea that Todd will actually be in South Africa. So we are very fortunate to have our accountant from the US with us, and I'd love to welcome him. Thank you, Todd.
So guys, I found Todd through a Google search when I was sitting in the UK looking at buying my first property in the States, and I needed to find out what an LLC was and how to move money and how to legally hold the stuff and how to get bank accounts and all the rest of that stuff. And he was one of a couple of people that responded, but he was very, very fast in communication. And that's played out over the last 7 years, where his level of service has just been unbelievable. We've worked with other accountants in the States, and I promise you, you do not want to mess with IRS. So you want someone that's on your power team, that's there, that's got your back, that's got a team that understands South Africans, understands the time zone difference, and nags you to get your stuff in so that you don't have penalties, you don't have any issues. And Todd's been doing that for me personally for the last 7 years, and it's been amazing. So thank you very much for keeping me out of any issues and saving me lots of money on tax. So
thank you very much, Brendan. You have to excuse my voice. I've been here. This is my first trip to South Africa, and I love this country. I mean, it's amazing. It's almost a mirror image of the United States, California. And I mean, all the way down to the menus and the food. I mean, except we don't have Springbok in California. But every night, and the South Africans are so hospitable. They've taken me everywhere. And they've also made sure that we closed every restaurant every night this week. So it's kind of gone with me. And I'm not used to this hectic pace. But anyway, we've been involved, as Brendan mentioned, for years with the, and we have over 300 South African clients. We have a department that just manages our South African clients. And I think what makes the difference is I lived in Europe when I grew up. I understand that, I mean, a lot of Americans tend to be very centralized in America and not really sure how to deal with foreigners and that kind of stuff. And from our perspective, I understand when you speak a different language that you have to speak. I mean, all of you do. You're in a country that's multi-language or multilingual, and when you speak to somebody that speaks a different language, you say things differently, you act differently, and you help to understand you. And that's what our staff has been trained to do. And so we do a hand-holding process. Our goal is, as Brendan mentioned, you have to file tax returns, and we have to make sure that that gets done. And we do it no matter what. And if we can't find you, you know, we've had it where we've sent somebody from South Africa to knock on people's doors or call and say, hey, we need this document back. because if you are in our system, there are big penalties, and we're aware of the penalties, and we want to make sure that you don't run into any of them. When Brendan, I believe, is going to talk about different structures, but you know, there's two ways when you invest in the United States of either being pulled into our tax system at a small level where you're only receiving dividends. And if you're investing small amounts in the US, that makes sense. When you start investing larger amounts, maybe $500,000 or more, you're looking at potentially saving a lot more if you do get pulled into our tax system only for US source income. Just because the US knows about you doesn't mean that all your foreign affairs are going to be looked at. Being pulled into the US tax system just means that you're taxed on the US portion of your income. And you get a tax ID number, you file taxes, and you get a lot of tax benefits. The new Trump tax law changes have, you know, he's in real estate. Of course, all the tax law changes are favorable to real estate. And
Wonder why that is.
Yeah, it's made my job a lot easier because we've got a lot of our clients are in real estate, and it's nice to eventually go to them with good news and say, you know what, your bill's going down this year as far as tax work goes. We have 4 CPAs, which are equivalent to your chartered accountants on our staff, and growing. And we have an enrolled agent, which is somebody that works directly with the IRS on behalf of our clients. And we have a strong support staff as well. We currently have 11 employees, and we manage that.
And the trip to Orlando is tax deductible.
Exactly.
To go visit him.
And that's the thing too. I mean, we as Brendan's mentioned, our banks are very protective about the U.S. and foreign relations and those things. And it's always a challenge to try to open a bank account when you don't go to the United States. And you know, I'll tell you, you know, coming this way, I feel at home here. The only thing is you guys drive on the wrong side of the road. Well, maybe not. Maybe you're driving on the wrong side. But either way, I honestly can say the only difference I see in our two countries is, I mean, the language barrier really doesn't exist. And you switch the roads as you feel at home in America, and it's worth a trip. I mean, to me, this trip here, it takes 24 hours to get here, but it is worth a trip, and to find so many friendly faces, and it's the same in America. I mean,
Yeah, we've been working there with great people for so many years, and it's good. So it's not, you know, America can have a bad rep around the world for a bunch of different reasons, and I've just found it completely the opposite. When you work with good quality people, generally, you know, wherever you're working with them around the world, they're good quality people, whether they be American, British, South African, Chinese, it doesn't really matter. As long as they're good quality people, generally you have much better results and just a nicer working environment. So I found it to be very conducive for good business in the States, working with Todd and his team. And on the structuring side of things and the cost to run it like a limited liability or a C corporation, it keeps those costs in line because we've managed to create it like a cookie cutter type system where to set up an LLC or a C corporation or whatever you want to do only costs $1,200. When we first did it on my LLC, I set it up wrong. I structured money going into it wrong, and it ended up costing me about $10,000 to $11,000 to get it right and then fix it and then do it again and all of that. So anyway, my learning is your benefit now, and Todd's been able to save a lot of costs because of the level of experience that he's had working with so many people. So.
And our process is to send out letters to our South African clients early in the year and get the process moving so that we're prepared. And then we work on collecting all the documents from our side, you know, K1s, anything that comes from the projects, we get those so you don't have to bother about it. Really, the questions we ask, and we have a few clients here, we ask how many days did you spend in America? And did you have any expenditures that you didn't tell us about? And those are the two things that we really need. The rest of it we gather from other sources and are able to put it all together.
Yeah. So on that note, basically it's to try and create it as hassle-free as possible. So when we running a project, we'll issue all the project financials to Todd. Todd will go through it all, and because he's got all the clients under one umbrella and all the projects under one umbrella, he knows where everything is and where everything's coming from. The only thing he doesn't know is if you started a business on your own or bought something outside of our net, then he needs to be made aware of that. So that's the only real thing that you need to do. And then, I mean, you file once a year, he sends it out, you sign, just check it. You know, we've done our best, but if there is something outside, sign it, send it back, and it's done. So it really is a very simple process. It's not anything to be scared of. It's not as complicated sometimes as our own e-filing system in South Africa. So it is very, very simple. And it's definitely been a pleasure having someone on that side just deal with everything. And all I have to do is get it, check it, sign, send back, and done. So thanks for coming out, Todd. It's been good spending some time with you.
Yes. Two questions. There's two little stickers on your thing that you sign here and sign here, and it's done. Which my text.
And actually, we find that was a challenging part, is to get those signatures back.
Yeah, people don't check their emails.
Right.
It really is.
But that is the most important part. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Just one little tick mark.
Can they issue a power of attorney to you? You just sign.
Yeah, no, I
No.
can't sign.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
So, any questions? Do you want to do questions now or later?
Let's do questions later, just to keep the momentum going. I'm going to talk a little bit. So I know a lot of people got excited about. Let me pull up the slide about a new structure that we just set up in South Africa. Just want to see if we've got it here. Oh, that's deals. We'll get to the deals a little bit later. Let me just draw it out for you. So when I posted up on the WhatsApp group, we've got Cassidy there in the corner. She works with a company called Hobbs & Clare. I had a mover in my head, which is a Section 12 jack. So Cassidy, please stand up. So if you want to chat with her about, she's a little bit under the weather. So she helped us get the structure in place. So it's not my brainchild. Her boss, Neil Hobbs from Hobbs & Clare, we were sitting with him talking about our own Section 12J, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. There's some opportunities there as well. And he said, well, you guys are doing this in the States. Have you thought about this particular structure? And he pricked my ears up because I've spent a lot of money on structures that haven't worked around the world. So I've looked at everything, and this blew me away because I've looked at Ireland, the Netherlands, Curacao, Caymans, Bermuda, Gibraltar, Jersey, Isle of Man, all of them. I've looked at every single one, and I've spent money on lots of them. I've spent $20,000 on a Hong Kong structure last year, and I still don't have a bank account because we can't get it open. So structuring is expensive, and it's got to be worth the time and worth the effort. So there's a level where it makes sense. If you're moving enough money, that the savings you make are significantly greater than the cost of setup. So what I want to show you today is South Africa has made itself a bit of a tax haven, which blew my mind. So Neil taught me this. Basically, we have yeah. So you have a company in South Africa, a normal PTY limited, nothing fancy. You have less than 10 shareholders, and this is a look through. So if you've got a trust that owns the shares in the PTY limited, however many beneficiaries of the trust, that's how many shareholders. So you can't have 10 trusts with 50 beneficiaries and think that you're going to get away with this. You're not. It's a look through. 10 shareholders is the maximum. Don't mess with that. Otherwise, you're not going to get the benefit of what I'm going to talk about in a second. And I just want to say, I don't do tax advice. I'm teaching you what I've already done. Cassidy there, she's the lady that does the tax advice, and Neil will do the setups if anybody wants to do it for their own account. I'm just showing you what I've personally done. Myself, Kevin, and the other partner in Joburg, Garrett. So we have less than 10 shareholders, and more than 80% of its assets must be offshore. So how we structured ours is we've just gone 100% offshore so that it can never, ever be questioned. I don't want to sit in a situation where at the end of the South African tax year, they start saying, well, you've got 79%, now it's taxed like this. So we just went 100%, it can never be questioned. So we own all the shares in a C corporation in the States, which is very much like a PTY limited here. This is designated a blocker corporation, and we can go into some details around that in a one-on-one. But basically, then I go from that C corporation into a limited liability company, which owns the property, and this is where all the income is generated and our partners in the States and the debt and everything's here. Our cash comes from South Africa into the C corporation, into the LLC. Okay. This structure, if we generate income and we flow the income back here as a one-time liquidation dividend, we only pay the tax in the US. I can then distribute that income out here with 0 dividend tax and 0 capital gains tax directly into your personal hands. No South African tax at all. It's unbelievable. When you actually understand it, it's amazing. So we set this up ourselves. I didn't realize South Africa was a tax haven. So this, to get it done, is depending on how many shareholders and how much work and everything, costs between 200 and 250,000 rand if you want to do one on your own. The alternative is we already have one set up. How we structure ours is we simply broke this down into 10 different classes of shares, and each class owns one C corporation. So if you wanted to partner with us, you subscribe for one class of shares. It's your class of shares, so you control that. You control the C corporation, and you can then go into our projects alongside us. The downside is you can only do our stuff because we're managing it for you. And the level to participate with us is, for today, our level is actually $1 million, but today I dropped it to $500,000 to take up. We've got potentially 4 slots already taken at $1 million each. We've just got one family flying out with us in January to look at our projects before they move their money. So we've got 6 slots available, but we need to make sure that it's the right people that are in there as well. So at $500,000, it makes sense. Anything less than that, it's not really beneficial, because to set this up costs us 200,000 rand. So as a level in terms of cost or benefit, if you're going to only invest $100,000, there's no point spending 200,000 rand on structure. But if you are going to move 500 to $1 million in the next year to 2 years, it's absolutely worth it. Now, the other major benefit here is, as Andrew was talking about earlier, is you've got to move your money through your personal foreign direct investment allowance. You've got 11 million rand to move, and that's it. You're done. Unless you do a special clearance and SARS comes in and gives you a bit of a check with a rubber glove. This method means you can go from your business pre-divvy tax. So you don't have to go into your personal name, take the tax hit, and then move the money with your personal foreign direct investment allowance. You can go from your business or your trust into our limited, and from here out. So you don't need to hemorrhage the tax on the way out. And then on the way back, you obviously don't have to pay any tax as well. You only pay the US tax. What's amazing about that is our foreign direct investment allowance is 1 billion rand. So we can move. I hope to have the problem that that's not enough. I really hope for that. It's not there yet. So it means we've taken away all the headache. Ours is already approved. Cassidy took almost 8 months to get us approved with the Reserve Bank and the bank that we used. It's a very particular foreign direct investment allowance for the business. We need to make sure there are some things in place. So we do a lot of motivation letters. Ours took quite a long time to get right. The reason we're able to get it right is we're doing property investment here, property development here, and we're doing property investment and property development there. So if you want us to help you get something like this structured for your own use, we'll sit with you, and it's going to cost about 200 to 250,000 rand. If you want to partner with us, we've already swallowed that cost. You simply have to put $500,000 into it. You take up one class of shares, that's yours. Put it in any of your projects or any of our projects in the US that you want to, and you control that, so you can liquidate whenever you feel like it. So it's an amazing structure if we sit together and really understand it. If it is the right thing for you guys, I'm excited for it, because it gives us a conduit to move a lot of money out of South Africa. And it does eventually have to come back. But if you structure things correctly, not so much. So Cassidy, maybe you can talk about that for a second, because I asked you that question the day before yesterday. Does it actually have to come back?
No.
Yeah. So it is quite amazing, and I hope you guys take advantage of it. If you are going to move some money out, it's a very clean, nice way to do. And Andy, we should chat about some of your clients that need it, because I know you've got some guys that desperately need it. Because you don't have to go do the whole SARS tax clearance thing for your 10 million rand. We've already taken on that role.
So, Brendan, quick question. Is that those 10 slots, is that in your personal name?
You can hold it in your personal name or in a trust, but as long as it's one beneficiary of a trust or one shareholder of a PT1 Limited, but you can hold it in your personal name, because there's no real downside to it. except for legacy. So if you legacy planning, obviously hold it in a trust, but then you just set up a specific trust with a beneficiary that holds it. So the nuances, let's sit together to figure it out. But yeah, it can be in your personal name. We're just not hemorrhaging tax. Any other questions?
What if you have a naughty client who adds beneficiaries without you knowing, screws up the whole thing without anyone knowing?
There'll be penalties. So the way we structure the subscription agreements and stuff, we check every year. And if it doesn't, if that person is messing around, we simply buy the shares back. So we're not going. That's why it needs like-minded people. That's also a reason why in our one we control it. So I know what's going on in it. If you are going to do one on your own, do one on your own. Don't have other partners. Like set it up for yourself, do it on your own, and then you control it and you can do whatever you want. And then from there, if you do set up one up on your own, you can do the UK, you can do Australia, you can go out into any countries. Obviously, if you're using ours, we just want to have the benefit of going into our projects.
So if you set one up on your own, must it be a PTY limited?
Yeah.
That must be the structure.
Yeah, must be a company.
Special designation.
Yeah, special designation under the Income Tax Act that less than 10 shareholders, more than 80% assets, no tax, to summarize.
And you want to see a project
The exciting stuff, the real project. Yeah.
off the space. So often, and we came in last night. We've been doing due diligence for quite a while.
So this one is in Macon, Georgia, which is about an hour to an hour and a half south of downtown Atlanta. It's also an old historic building. It's got 64 units, 3 retail units at the bottom there. It's a mixture of 2 beds and 1 bed, mostly 1 bed. I think it's about 10 2 beds or 11 2 beds, and the rest are all 1 bedroom. There was a group of architects that bought it, and the one main lady is now, as Kevin was saying earlier, she's getting old. She just came out of surgery last week, which is why she actually hasn't responded to our offer. The broker said our offer is accepted, but we're just waiting for it to actually sign it. So we'll see where that goes. They spent a lot of money. They're overcapitalized on it, making it beautiful. So they've already renovated entirely. This one is not really a forced appreciation model. It's more a case of we're below market rents. They've already spent a lot of money. We can get it at a bit of a discount. And if we just wait and renew the leases at a higher rental return, we're going to be able to push that appreciation up quite significant. What's amazing about it as well is our in-place cash flow. We're able to buy this project now at around a 7% cap rate going in. And when they were brought into market, the 3 retail centers at the bottom there were vacant. And they haven't changed the price, but they pulled the retail centers. So we now have tenants there, we've got income, and the price hasn't changed. So we're getting a bit of a discount to market at the moment because of that. And the deal parameters are out the gate. We've got a project cash on cash return of 11%. If we get 2 years interest only debt, we've got 2 potential debt terms at the moment. One is on 5 years interest only, and one's on 2 years interest only. We're still in the early stages of getting that, because once we've got it under contract, then we'll go out to the market. We've only spoken to 1 mortgage broker, and he's given us an outline of terms that we can get. But it's definitely possible to get 2 years interest only. So that when we go to paying the principal debt, obviously we would have had the rental escalations, and then we'll start paying principal. So our cash on cash will come down a little bit. But if we've had the rental escalations, we should come down to about 10% cash on cash from year 3. We only get 2 years of interest only. So the way we structure our deals is on existing product like this, we do a 6% preferred return. So anybody that's put physical cash in gets the first 6% out before Infiniti makes anything, the US partners make anything. Before I made a cent, you guys have had to have made at least 6%. And it's on an accrued basis. So if we didn't hit 6%, if we only hit 5 this year, next year we've got to pay you the shortfall on this year and the 6% next year before we make anything. So on that basis, with an 11% cash on cash, the way it's just a little bit more than that. I was rounding up last night. The split over 6% is 50% to the investors, 20% to Infiniti, 20% to the US sponsor who's bringing the project to the table and helping manage it, and 10% to the guy who's signing for the debt, the guarantor. So we make 20% of the the investors have made a 6% plus 50%. So on that cash flow, the reason it's at 8.5%, the US sponsor and us are making the other 2.5% roughly, whatever that is. Our 5-year selling price, we're buying it at about 10.5 million. We're looking to put down roughly $2.8 million in physical cash as our deposit, including our renovation budget, because there's a little bit of renovations that we can do to uptick rents a little bit further. And we're looking to make roughly $2 million in profit. But if you take into account the cumulative cash flow and the profit on exit, we're looking at about $3.2 million in total cash that we're going to make, which is a total project return of 114%, but an IRR of about 19%. And this is where IRR gets, a lot of people have done a lot of courses where IRR is the gold standard and that determines your growth and that's how fast you're growing. For me, IRR has become second to cash flow. I can't buy Starbucks with IRR. It's just that simple. Eventually I can, but I want cash flow landing in my bank account every month or every quarter because that's what determines my global freedom. I want $20,000 a month or $30,000 a month or whatever the case may be. That's my freedom. The internal rate of return is rubbish until it happens. You get my meaning? So you have to exit or you've got to increase the rents and hopefully get a little bit of cash flow. That's where it's, I like cash flow. So this project's extremely exciting. It's live right now. Strangely enough, we met with one client yesterday with Sean and one client last night, and it looks like we're already over halfway raised, and we're personally putting cash in. That's another thing in terms of our philosophy, is I'm not offering for you guys to buy this. The only things that I would offer for you guys to buy if I stand it as a broker would be like some of the office product you've seen that we've sold in the past. I don't buy that stuff with my own money. We had an investor that wants to buy it, he understands it, he likes that stuff. Happy, let him buy it. I don't know what the risk is going to look like on those businesses that are in that building at this particular time. I much prefer buying multi-family stuff. So with my personal money, I'm putting it in this stuff. So I vote with my feet, I vote with my cash. I'm voting on this stuff. So we're personally putting in some money. What we are doing, I know we ran a bit of an experiment with the Wealth Migrate platform, previous business that I was part of the founding team, on the Alturas project that we did, where they raised a little bit of money for that project, and we're going to continue to allow the Wealth Migrate platform to have small pieces of our projects to lower the barrier of entry and allow a lot of people to be able to invest in projects like this. And generally that limit will be about $100,000 as a total amount of money that will be invested at $10,000 per person. Usually our minimum is $100,000 per person. So I know a lot of people here are Wealth Migrate people that have invested there in the past. So we're now working with Scott and the team to be able to put our projects on the website and slowly build that up over time. But we don't want to just hit it in one go and have to rely on lots and lots and lots of people around the world to raise us out. We want to make sure that we can raise it, that we do close, because our reputation is linked to closing. We cannot for a second not close or think that we can't close. So we make sure that we've got enough money to close before we even put the offer in, so that we know our reputation is never going to be at risk on that side, because then you simply don't get deals. People suddenly stop phoning and saying, you know, when you mess them around or you extend closing, or you're trying to buy an extension because you, on this side, messing around, we don't have the money to actually buy the property. So we never put that at risk, which is why we're slowly building up with the Wealth Migrate team to be able to bring product to the market at a lower barrier of entry. So if you do see one go live and you only want to put $10,000 in, move quickly, because not a lot of those spaces are going to be available. Generally, our limit is $100,000 at a time. The next project is, well, this is what it looks like in terms of cash flow on that project on our initial pro forma. 8.5 grand year one, 9,300 year two when we push the rents up a little bit, 8,000 year three when we come back to paying principal debt. If we can get 5 years interest only, obviously our rental income will be much higher. This is what we can distribute out every quarter, and then exit profit based on the 60% 50-50 split. On $100,000, you're looking at about $30,000, which is a total cash flow and profit of 73 grand over 5 years. So you're going to get your $173,000 back. And then if there is a profit here, you can pay your 21% tax and take the profit, or you can do a 1031 exchange and defer that profit and keep rolling with IRS money and yours. Yeah.
Rental escalation, are you only able to do that because the initial rent was too low? Or
So-
is this already right at the
So generally the rental escalations in the market are about 2.5% a year. But we're looking for it where it's already $100 below and they haven't pushed rents up significantly in that market. So like the one we bought with Alturas, we were about $150 below market rent, and by just upticking it to that level without the renovation, we've already got some organic growth. And then with the renovation on top, we can push rents another $100 to $150 a month on top of our $150 already locked in. So we are looking for those opportunities. It's not vanilla stuff where it's fully tenanted A-class product at the highest rent possible in that neighborhood, and you're never going to get the rental escalation. We want the stuff where we're going to get the rental escalation even if we do nothing. That's standard.
So it's the inefficiencies that give us the outside return. So your
Yeah.
CPI stuff's 2 to 3, and then obviously because it's badly managed, because it's a little trading the market, because there's a little bit of a opportunity to do something internally to add more features, you'll get an outside return. Like on the Atlanta one, we lifted it 8 to 13% for some tenants to leave so they can do the renovation. Okay, how many left?
None.
No, champagne problems. These letters have lots of those problems. So instead of doing a 2%, we did the 8, and you know, some of the apartments 13, and it's they stay. So yeah, keep doing it. Terrible problem.
It's fantastic. I think that building's worth $23 million today, and I'm not selling yet. So this property we got under contract last night. It is 86 units, well, townhomes, but it's an apartment complex. So there's an interesting value play over here. This one's got no positive cash flow at the moment. So I want to just say this one's a slightly different deal to the way we normally do stuff. The reason it's got no cash flow is 20 of the units burnt out in a fire, and they never fixed it. So those 20 units have been standing vacant for a while, and our opportunity is to get in there, fix the 20 units, put tenants in them, uplift the rental income, and either refinance or sell at that point. Because we're taking a bridge loan facility because we can't get traditional debt at this point in time because the income's too low. So our bridge loan facility, the quotes are coming in at between 7 and 7.5%. So in this particular case, it's a different deal. So I don't want you to think that this is the standard. But the upside here is significant because it's slightly different and nobody else wants it because of the problem with the burnt out units. What's amazing about it is we're buying it with the capital that we need to do the renovation at $6.1 million. We're able to finance some of that capex cost as well. So we have to put down 1.8 million. If we can boost the net operating income to 430 grand, that would give us a value at a 6% cap rate. In Atlanta at the moment, this product is selling at a 5.5 cap rate, but stabilized. So at 6%, we're still conservative, even with the interest rate increases that we're currently experiencing in the US market. So at 6%, it's valued at about 7.2 million. In an 18-month turnaround, if we can sell it for 7.2 million, we're going to make about $1 million in profit, which is a 55% return. RR, I didn't do the calculation last night. Literally at 3 o'clock this morning, Ricky was sending us pictures and information because he was there yesterday. So if we refinance this out at 80% loan to value, which we can get at a stabilized asset, we're going to leave 300 grand in the deal. We'll be able to take out 5.8 million. So we'll get all of our capital out, well, almost all of it, and leave only 300 grand of our 1.8 in, and that'll take our cash on cash to 25% on our 300 grand. If we can refinance it at a little bit higher value, obviously we can take all of that, we'll have an equal percent. But this one here, if we sell, we're looking to make roughly $1 million in 18 months. And I can tell you now, we are buying this asset. Brendan, Kevin, and Jared are going to put it in. If anybody wants to partner with us, you're welcome to, but we're buying it relentless and regardless. So I hope you guys do take the opportunity to do it. What we do is really try and save people time. We're hunting, we're looking for this stuff. If I show you our deal tracking sheet, there's about 12 deals over there where we've killed it for this reason. And that's the list where we said these are the good deals based on the offering memorandum that comes in. An offering memorandum, let me just put this out there, it's bullshit. It's lies. You've got to find the truth in reality, because they're going to sell you on the future income if you do the intervention at a 6% cap rate, and if you find it on the trading 12 months of reality today, it's a 4% cap rate. So you're overpaying for the property out the gate. So when we get the offering memorandum, we start asking for information, and we start building our own spreadsheet to see what have they said that's true and what have they said that's lie. What we have found is there's more truth the more expensive you buy. So when someone sends you a pro forma spreadsheet for a $20 million building, it's usually much, much better than a $6 million building. The $6 million guys, they're hoping for the sucker that doesn't do any homework and just pays. $20 million, So we do a lot more research on the $6 million buys because therein there's lots and lots of lots. So when we look at deals like this, we do a lot of research in lots of deals before we say, yes, this is the one we're going to buy, and we hope that some people partner with us. And that's it. Thanks very much.
Any questions?
Yeah, Dannenberg's the other one. This is Delta Kingston Abbey. This is about 20 minutes south of downtown Atlanta. So it's right in the Ring Road area. Yes. This one is end of January. We've already got it under contract. We're delaying closing to get our construction quotes in before we close, because I want to make sure that our pro forma is correct. So we do have a long due diligence period on this one because of the burnt units, so that we can get our construction quotes in before we have to close. So we're trying to buy a little bit of time, but we already have it under contract, so we do have to move quickly. When our due diligence expires, we've got quite a big deposit we have to pay, which will go out quite quickly. So it's going to be non-refundable. So we're making sure that we do a lot of the work now, which is why Ricky spent half the day there yesterday. He walked every unit, he checked the burnt stuff. They're meeting construction guys on site there tomorrow. So it's starting to roll already, and we haven't even gotten very far in the purchase process yet. Dannenberg, it's probably going to be a 45 to 60 day due diligence period. We've put in 60 days. They might come back 45 days, and we're saying it's over Christmas. Like, guys, we need a 60-day due diligence period, and then close by end of January, somewhere around there. So it will be thereabouts, end of Jan. Move your money this year. I would say if you're going to move money, listen to Andy. It's at 1365. I haven't seen it that good for a while. It's maybe coming back a little bit more, but don't lose out on the opportunity to move your money in December and then not be able to move money in January.
The benefit of now, especially because now at resets in December
or in January.
So if you could, if you wanted to, you could do this on your own kind of thing, or the other one on your own. Because you get $1 million, your million, your wife now, and then $1 million in December, and another $1 million afterwards.
I don't think that adds up to $1.8 million, but it's that's why I do the spreadsheets.
Why did they rebuild those burnout units? Insurance.
They didn't claim, they weren't insured. This property has been mismanaged badly. They got a water leak that's been going for over a year. Their water bill is insane. So this one's one of those gems where it has been mismanaged. They do want to get out. There's an opportunity for a value upliftment, but there's no cash flow in the first year. And I'm aware of it. There's enough cash flow to pay the debt, but there's not enough cash flow to pay us out. But I know there's upside if I can get those other 20 odd units online. There's big upside. And the rental that they're already getting on the units, so they're living in a burnt out place. The apartments across the road, they divided into condos, and they're selling those condos for $175,000 each. So if you go and do the numbers and say, if these are worth $130 each on sale, I don't know what that is. So maybe somebody take a calculator quickly. Say if we convert these to sectionalized to condos and we sell at 130 grand each, $10–11 million, and we're paying $6 million. There's some proper upside here if we do it correctly. And that's why Brendan's putting his own money in this one. I'm not worried about the cash flow. I've got enough in other projects. So now I'm going into a at least I can go and kick the tires and see what it is. It's not a ground up development like we did in Kingsport. I'm out of ground up development. Kevin still loves them. I'm done. I don't need it. I don't need the headaches. But we're still making good money out of the ground up developments. It's just much harder. And I can get similar returns much quicker with existing stuff. So for Brendan, that's my personal preference. Are we on time? That was
way of okay, so now we've got Kevin again.
Okay, so
Okay.
let me just switch around there.
Your head's probably already exploded. So I'm going to go through something interesting with you because, and I'll tell you a little bit of the story. Don't bring it up yet.
Too late.
Close your screen. Okay. It's amazing what drives, and necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it? So I'm Jewish, and I sold my house to all my money to South Africa, I mean to America, and there's things that don't go very well together. Jews and tax. So allergy we have. So if you can avoid it, I wouldn't say I don't want to pay tax. I just want to pay as little as possible. So I had a big liquidity event with our house, and I want to pay the tax. So set up a section fund that is your capital fund. If anyone's ever heard of it before, it's a provision in the tax code. It's designed around employment, and I'll explain to you in a second. But the reason why it's called 12J is it's an interesting scenario. So basically the way it works is it was geared towards employment, but there's some interesting things. We've got some very prominent investors in our property stuff. Thanks. And one of the groups you all would have heard of, but I don't want to use the name, but it's probably the largest private property owner in the Southern Hemisphere. And we've done lots of work with him before and got a really great relationship with him. And this is all what you're going to see now is all. It's not an open fund. It's a closed fund. It's only available to his network. But because of the way that they structured the tax rules, is that they can only own a maximum of 69% of everything that they do. So the other 31% has to be owned by somebody else. And because we've got lots of business with him, and we knew I had a 12J, and we hadn't really done too much with it, it enabled us to partner with theirs, which is what's brought this to the table. So the only time I would ever invest in South Africa in property, apart from what I just said, which is never invest in South African property, is if you could do it through a Section 12J. So really what a Section 12J is that if you had R1 million in taxable income this year, you made R1 million, you'd have to pay $450,000 personal tax. If you put R1 million into a Section 12J, you don't pay any tax. One line in your tax return. Does that make sense? If you've got a company that whatever the corporate tax rate is, put that full roll-up number into the 12J, no tax. So the rules are it has to stay in 5 years, and obviously you do pay tax on. We can pay out dividends, but you'll pay dividends tax on it, and then obviously at the end of the day you liquidate in the 5th year. For those that want to liquidate, then obviously you'll pay tax again on capital gains. Does that make sense? But the tax that you would have had to pay this year, you don't pay.
In terms of the limitation on property, you can't do all property in a Section 12J because it's venture.
It's employment driven. So the only provision in it, and it's still a loophole in the system which they haven't closed, is that it has to be hospitality. Hospitality for a lot of people. So let me go through this quickly with you. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Our Section 12J is Hatch. The other one that they're running is one called Habitat. So it's exposure to the hospitality developments in South Africa. We've got a really cool pipeline of product, which I'll show it to you just now, and obviously the co-funding together. So the way it works is 100% of the investment is tax deductible in the year that you do it, and you can do it every year. In the first year, 2017, we raised 50 million rand. Last year we raised 83 million rand, and this year we're targeting 150 million rand. So it's going well, and there's lots of opportunity. You'll see how it's all structured in a second. Okay, so this is the first acquisition that we've made, which is the Rockefeller, as if you live in Cape Town. So it's going to be run by the Capital Hotel Group, which is part of the bigger group. So they're very well known, very proficient hotel operators.
And just to put that in perspective, our partner Jared in Joburg in Infiniti was one of the founders of the Capital Hotel Group. So we've got a lot of history working with them. We know they're excellent at what they do. And yeah, so it's just an amazing
there's certain
opportunity.
Rules here that we've taken. Obviously, you can only, Section 12J can only invest a maximum 50 million rand into each project. So the maximum we would be able to invest in here is 100,000 rand. 100 million, 50 million, and 100 million.
Yeah.
The dollar rand is killing me. So what's interesting is if you want to, you can still go buy apartments here. It's a really good price. It's a great product. Go buy an apartment. I think the price has even gone up now. You'll pay 51,000 a square meter plus VAT, and you're getting it at a 16% discount already. So all the stuff that we're going to bring on, because we're working with the developer, which is part of the bigger group, is you're getting discounts off the bat.
So you're getting the discount and you're getting the tax write-off. So you're using SARS's money to invest in property in South Africa.
If you're paying personal tax, you just got a 45% discount plus 16. What's that?
61.
61% discount on a property. Have you ever had that before in a brand new build? So it's crazy. Okay, it's crazy. Our minimum investment is R1 million. Our minimum investments in the US stuff's $100,000. unless you want to bring friends through something else. So, it's an amazing opportunity. I think this is a great product. That's our first one. This year we're going to complete these 3 products, all in high-end areas. So this is in Rosebank, one in Rosebank, one in Sandton, one in Hyde Park, all going to be hotels. This one is a luxury hotel, 70-room luxury hotel. This is a more affordable long stay and short stay hotel in Sandown and Sandton, and there's a mid-priced one long and short stay Hyde Park, which is, these are some of the 3 best areas in Johannesburg.
And some insight there as
Again,
well.
it's discounted off the bat. Sorry.
Yeah.
Same.
Just one thing is, Jared's running the similar hotel groups in Sandton right now, and his occupancy rate is 95%. So in those areas, you're able to get very, very good occupancy rates, different to what you would normally get in a normal hospitality environment where they're running 55, 60%. So because you get the business and the tourist travel.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but these are the guys that are running Hatch, and obviously, Habitat, and obviously Brendan are running Hatch, and it's a really, really good team. Jamie's amazing, and it's funded by the people that I spoke about, and they're intrinsically involved in this, obviously, as well. So the way it works is Hatch and Habitat will invest into the project and will own a certain number of the floors of the hotel and will rent it out. So each one of this will then own full sectional cycle apartments. So what happens is at the end, when people want to exit, if you want to just stay in for 5 years, you wanted to exit, there's lots of liquidity opportunities. But the goal here with this is that over the next 5 years, we're going to build a fund and list it on the stock exchange, and that will create liquidity for everybody. If those of you want to stay in for the listing, those who don't want to stay in for the listing, pre-listing, we'll sell as many apartments as we need to exit those that need to be exited. That makes sense. And obviously we've got an expert hotel, and you'll see there are different hotel operators. Depends on what product it is. This is Mark Hotels. This is going to be Air Managed, which is an Airbnb specialist that we've got an investment in as well. And so the investment strategy is obviously, what I love about this is venture capital by its nature is risky. So, the first 18 months, we were going to just do hospitality as a small part of what we did, and we were going to do a whole lot of venture capital deals. And we probably sat down and seen probably 100 businesses, and they look great, but it's risky by nature.
Underwriting a business is just completely different to underwriting a property. Like you've got 5,000 variables in a business compared to.
We had some, we got some really simple strategy with the venture capital. We put exceptional operators, down to an exceptional operator that don't generally need money. So that was the hardest. Exceptional operator has got a great business who needs money and network to scale. What we've got is access to lots of money, and we have an amazing network. So if we could 10 exit or 5 exit with just the network of people that we know, it was a great philosophy for venture capital. But, it's one thing sticking your money into a property where you know what you got. It's another thing sticking your money or anybody else's money into a venture capital deal. So the venture capital side, another way, and we went straight into hospitality. So we've got premium allocations and strong demand both in long and short term stay, and obviously we're getting a discount at the bat. The way the funds work, all of them pretty much similar on a 2 and 20 model. So there's a 2% managed, 20% of upside. And the exit strategy is multiple. So there's a listing, there's the trade sale, so section problems from time to time if people want to exit. That's really, it's really good. If you have tax problems here and you don't want to pay tax, this is a great way not to pay tax.
And grow your property portfolio at a discount.
It's the only way I would do it. If you're getting a 61% discount for your property opportunities, yeah, then it makes sense. Otherwise, US. Because remember what I said to you, if you take the inflation and the depreciation of the rand into account, 26% ahead a year to be at 0 and 36% ahead to make 10%. Right? So that's quite a big number, isn't it? But that's still better. Because if we're doing a 15% IRR there in the US, which is a compounded, and you add that onto the 26%, you have to be maths 40-something% ahead every year. Does that make sense? And you could come possibly close here. Can't get all your money out. This is a good way to play in South Africa if you want to play here too.
And what I like about it is it's short-term tenants, so you don't have to deal with the PI Act. So the only reason I'll put money in this is that I don't have to deal with local
We
tenants.
don't have problems evicting people because it's all hotels.
Is it too cold in here, guys? Jordan, can you just ask them to?
Our attorneys are Worksmans, BCMS and Moonstone are with compliance administration. Obviously, we're registered with the FSB.
If it's FSCA now, so.
And you did a survey at my school when I was at school. If everyone, you ever asked anyone, given whatever they had a financial service, you're just amazed. It's not possible. So every time I see FSB, I just laugh. It's just like, yeah, anyway. You know me, it's nice. If you want to get discuss it, you know, any of the stuff. We've got lots of great stuff going on in the US. We've got lots of great stuff going on. Yeah, we've got great partners there. We've got great partners here. So I'm excited about South Africa. I'm excited about the future, but you know, I'm more excited to know that $1 income. Makes it a big deal. So I hope that you guys found it useful today and helpful. There's still coffee and tea, and you can hang around and talk to Todd and talk to Andrew and all the people we have here. We're quite a big staff complement here. Maybe these are all the Infiniti people. All the Infiniti people stand up.
And includes you, Todd. so yeah,
Jordan runs our office.
what we're trying to build for ourselves, which is really the global income.